Okay, greetings and welcome NAIFA Nation, and welcome to our NAIFA State of the Union first quarter 2021. I know our country is being hit with some severe weather, so button up, be careful, this too will pass. And I also hope that this finds you and your families safe and sound. And a thank you to you for attending today to get your updates on this association that we so embrace. Today, you're going to hear from myself, our CEO, Kevin Mayhew, and our Senior Vice President of Government Relations, Diane Boyle. And I believe that you will concur that our association is healthy, it is on the right track, and it does remain the leading voice of advocacy in the insurance and financial services industry. Before we move ahead though, please allow me to take a look back at last year and put where we are in context. You know, we've tried to make these calls on a quarterly basis to inform you, our constituents and others, and in essence, our shareholders of NAIFA, about how NAIFA is doing. And this same call was held about the same time a year ago with immediate past President Cammie Scott, with optimism abounding about our direction. And then, as you all know, about a month later, our world was changed, not just for 2020, but for months and years to come. However, through that pandemic, our organization really showed its true grit. It's often, you may know this, but financial institutions are required to do a financial stress test to see how it would survive in down markets or an economic crisis. Well, I would indirectly call this NAIFA stress test. But we did not just survive, we thrived. We pivoted to online programming, developed webinar series, and all this while keeping open our advocacy channels with leaders across the country through our great government relations team and your grassroots effort. On top of that, while many struggled, we grew our new memberships as we attracted a younger, more diverse association. It's because of this, because of our improved infrastructure, a revamped NAIFA team, and because of the future that NAIFA holds in its hands, I'm happy to report to you that the state of our association is strong, it is vibrant, and it swells with enthusiasm. Now, Kevin and I are going to expand on this enthusiasm that I hope you will take from this call today. However, again, please allow me to put where we are currently and where we are going by doing a quick retrospection. As most of you know, and it is hard to believe, but it was just 6 years ago that we adopted NAIFA 2020, a bold strategic plan that laid out a bright yet changing future. In that plan was a recommendation to review our business model. And I was asked by then President Jules Gaudreau and President-elect Paul Doherty to chair the Quality Member Experience, QME as you know it, task force. This task force, if you remember, brought together a cross-section of this federation and outside consultants. It was recommended in our extensive meetings that our long-standing structure of over 600 entities and 600 due structure just was no longer relevant. It was literally holding us back, and it had to be changed. A monumental bylaws amendment was proposed to do so, and this federation took the bold step in May of 2018 to remake NAIFA in a resounding vote. The new bylaws, and hence the new NAIFA that we know today, began on January 1st, 2019. So this marks the third year. And my fellow NAIFA members, I am here to tell you this plan is working. We can see it in people's attitude, and we can see it in our numbers growth. Look at this, 104% new member growth. The plan is working. As Kevin Mayhew will detail, and since our last State of the Union, we continue to pile up victories that give us confidence that the new NAIFA is not only being accepted, but producing the positive results that we had hoped for. So we will continue this momentum. And as most of you know, under the leadership of President-elect Larry Holtzberg, we formed a new task force this past year to create further vision and more association blueprints with another strategic plan, NAIFA 2025. Now, this task force brought even a broader cross-section than the first one, with heads of carriers and other associations to review and plan our future. And your board of trustees, after review across the Federation over a couple months, ratified this new plan last month, and we commenced implementing its ideas and concepts immediately. So let's put this in perspective. It's one thing to talk change. It's another thing to enact change. And many business leaders with organizational history will tell you that year 3 is critical. It's where rubber meets the road, if you will, or where the theory is put into practice. Well, again, as Kevin will tell you, your leadership feels that our actions have produced very positive results, and we're positioned to produce more results in 2021 and beyond. So to say it's a big year, it's a mild understatement. It's year 3 of positive implemented change, while at the same time beginning a strategy for another 5 years. Enthusiasm? Enthusiasm? You bet I have it. You bet I've got some enthusiasm. Just look at this history. Just look at this history. As most of you know, our founding goes back to 1890. And as most of you, NAIFA now is 131 years old. But this is a new NAIFA. And as you can see, there's a lot of changes that have been made in just the last 4 years. But this new NAIFA is poised for growth. It's positioned to appeal to all audiences, and it is as diverse and inclusive as it has ever been. But, and however, don't let my enthusiasm begin to tell you that the heavy lifting is done. My friends, my colleagues, it is just beginning. Let's be honest. These are difficult times for associations, no matter the industry. Members question their value and if their investment in these difficult times is producing the return they hope for. We get it. But you don't stick around for 131 years unless you adapt like we have done in this slide. And that is why we embrace the challenge of growth every day. We know that our industry needs a strong NAIFA. Our carriers know that we need a strong NAIFA. Our constituents know we need a strong NAIFA. And at the end of the day, our clients need a strong NAIFA. Please remember a few years ago, to create and ensure continuity, we created the Office of the President, which is in essence the executive team. This is not your grandpa or your dad's NAIFA, as they would say, where sometimes from year to year, we would go in a different direction to appeal a couple people's whims. By developing this office, we created consistency and stability in executing our strategic plan. We are a professional association, a sales and marketing organization, if you will, run by association professionals with years of experience, and they work side by side with the executive board, and the membership who create the vision. I cannot emphasize enough that the Board of Trustees and myself are meant to be an extension of you, our member. We are here to help, and most importantly, we are here to listen. We listen with the intent to learn, not with the intention just to have a reply. So we welcome your input. This is not Tom's association. This is your association. And our work has never been more important, as you will hear. That is why a strong NAIFA is needed now as much as any time in our extraordinary 131-year history. So enjoy today's presentation. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve you and this industry that I hold so close to my heart. And with that, it is my great pleasure to introduce our stellar CEO, Mr. Kevin Mayu.
Thank you, Tom, and hello, NAIFA Nation. As always, it is a pleasure to work so closely with our Office of the President, our Board of Trustees, and all the chapter boards and staff across our great association. If you're new to NAIFA or have been with NAIFA for decades, let me be the first to say thank you for belonging to your professional association. During my tenure at NAIFA, we have undertaken a tremendous change management project, a business initiative that is part turnaround and part startup in nature to oversee the modernization of our association. As Tom mentioned, we started with the 5-year strategic plan called NAIFA 2020, which we have now successfully completed. Our work will now continue with the newly adopted 2025 strategic plan, a plan that was created by a broad cross-section of NAIFA members and industry leaders, each of whom agreed that a strong NAIFA is critical for our industry to be healthy. Our strategic planning work wrapped up with the unanimous approval of the plan during the January NAIFA Board of Trustees meeting. I'd like to take a moment and thank and recognize all those individuals who donated their time and talents to our 6-month-long strategic planning process. The NAIFA 2025 plan builds on our work to date. The core pillars are extensions of the foundations of the new enterprise-wide association that we put into place just 2 short years ago. The 3 focus areas of membership growth, brand amplification, and enhancing the member experience are all natural progressions to the new programs and the structure we've established since January 2019, when the new bylaws went into effect. As Tom stated, the plan is working and has been working. In fact, if anything, COVID has sped up our evolution and united us into a modern association faster than we had projected. As we come up to the anniversary of the nationwide shutdown with COVID, we reflect on how fast NAIFA pivoted to bring our association together. For many, March 16th was the beginning of the shutdown, and by March 23rd, just 1 week later, NAIFA was putting on town halls that gathered together our members and provided additional support services. As the pandemic wore on, we continued to retool and turn our long-standing in-person events into virtual opportunities to connect. What we learned is that we could connect with more people from across this country when we took travel out of the equation. That has helped us make NAIFA more inclusive, more connected, and more valuable, and that our members, no matter where they are located, can participate in high-quality NAIFA events. From our NAIFA Nation Impact Week that allowed us to welcome more than 5,000 people for special days focused on diversity, advocacy, and leadership development, to the successful Performance Plus Purpose Conference, Long-Term Care Week, and our inaugural NAIFA Belong member celebration and virtual annual meeting. We welcomed in total more than 30,000 people into NAIFA events in 2020. This helps ensure that our membership promise of advocate, educate, and differentiate was delivered to every NAIFA member. So you might ask, what does 2021 look like? There's just one word: more. The plan is working, and we will continue to work the plan. This year, we will continue to move forward and further unifying our association into one NAIFA by leveraging our tremendous programs, such as the Leadership in Life Institute, NAIFA Live, Congressional Conference, and Performance Plus Purpose to achieve economies of scale. We will continue to build out our strong corporate and association partnership program that benefits all of NAIFA through providing additional investment, members, and experts to whom members can turn when trying to solve challenging cases while expanding their book of business. This year will see us ramp up our efforts to have more members participate in NAIFA Live. the monthly membership event that features a top speaker that all members can enjoy without charge. We will also fully focus on offering more Lilly classes and greatly accelerating our number of Lilly graduates who want to lead in the industry and in our association. Other areas of focus include growing our membership base through offering value-based programs to general agents and managers while providing the publicity and promotion that is needed to differentiate oneself in today's market. At NAIFA, we are making new investments. We will release NAIFAconnect.org this week, a new members-only online and mobile app-based community just for NAIFA members. We will release our new and improved Find an Advisor consumer-based search tool that allows consumers to search for and get to know potential advisors. It goes beyond thinking about advisor to client matchmaking in just geographic terms, but also allows NAIFA members to personalize their own listings to let consumers know who they are, additional community work, and what they are involved in and what they believe in. In fact, 2021 is focused on increasing interaction in our membership, whether that's member to member, having more members volunteer for a leadership role, or having more members present directly to consumers in topic-based webinars. NAIFA is here to work to increase the financial security for all Americans. Our work has not gone unnoticed, and because of it, we have been tapped by more associations to work together on joint campaigns. Whether it is with an aim towards increasing our advocacy voice at the state, interstate, or federal levels, or to participate in supporting expanded diversity, equity, and inclusivity efforts, the bottom line is that NAIFA and NAIFA members are in demand. We are seen as a critical component to the financial services industry, and our association support is asked for by groups like ACLI, the Alliance for Lifetime Income, LIMRA, SIFMA, and many more. Our partnerships with Life Happens, the Society of Financial Services Professionals, the Forum 400, NAILBA, WIFS, NAIA, LIA, and others, continues to grow stronger. We are planning on more joint planning opportunities in the future with MDRT. It is such an exciting time in NAIFA. Every day brings new inquiries, new members, and new opportunities. So what about this quarter and the new initiatives are we to expect? Alongside with NAIFAconnect.org, an improved Find an Advisor consumer search tool, and an all-star lineup of speakers for NAIFA Live, we are also launching our National Speakers Bureau and our inaugural Business Performance Center's Impact Week, which has already had so much demand that we had to expand the hours to fit in all the amazing speakers that have volunteered to be part of the new Center of Excellence focused on helping NAIFA members grow their practice. With all of the excitement on these new programs, new growth, and new initiatives, it is easy to get caught up and forget to focus on a very real truth, that none of this is possible without our members who are actively engaged in advocacy. As more Americans become vaccinated and as the economy starts to open, the reality is that we have a long way to go in ensuring that every American's financial future is secured. The research tells us that the coverage gap is growing and that NAIFA takes all this as a call of action because we have the people and the businesses that are hurting out there, and we need to help Main Street USA, which is where NAIFA truly thrives. To talk about how NAIFA is retooling on our advocacy front and what our advisors need to know, please let me welcome our Senior Vice President of Government Relations, Diane Boyle. Diane?
Great. Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I love talking about more engagement because that's what we're going to talk about next. Let's go to the next slide and we'll take a look at how we're expanding our capabilities. One of the things that we've seen and we've talked about for years is sort of the life of a legislator, and that it begins very often with local offices and they'll work their way through the state legislature and then ultimately to Congress. And now what we've seen, especially with this particular Congress off to a slow start, and I'll touch on that a little bit, the states are sort of running very quickly. And so we're seeing them take action sooner than what we've seen in previous years, but we're geared up for that. And those NAIFA member relationships really make a difference. One of the things that we've done on our team is to make sure that that flow is consistent through all of those facets. We've added to our team a new policy director, Megan Gale, joined us. So I hope that when you see her name, that you will welcome her and you're going to just really enjoy working with her. She's a pleasure to be with. Let's take a look at the next slide. So it's not just NAIFA that's noticing that advocacy is needed in this virtual environment that Tom and Kevin talked about, are changing how we do things. And so it's more important than ever to make sure that we have and we keep our strong presence in relationships with those lawmakers. The companies are asking for advocacy too. We've looked at New York Life or Meritas reaching out recently to engage at a greater level than before with NAIFA, particularly in the state advocacy side of things too. As I said, we're seeing the states move more quickly, and some of that is because of COVID. Some of that is the result of the elections. And one of the things that NAIFA is doing to pivot there is to make sure that we have a new advocacy training program. We've taken our Influence program, which used to be a 3-day in-person program, and we're breaking it down into a digital format that you should be able to participate in very soon. And in the meantime, as we gear up for that, if you'll go to NAIFA.org/advocate, that will give you your profile in advocacy. You'll be able to sign in simply with your email once you get there, and it'll give you information on your advocacy participation within NAIFA. Let me get Max a bone and we'll be right back. It'll give you that profile, and you'll be able to identify and let us know if you have existing relationships with lawmakers and how to develop those relationships if you don't have one. If you look at this new Congress and the new legislative arena, we've been a little rough start here in Congress in DC. There are 50 new freshmen, so identifying those relationships on that NAIFA.org/advocate will allow you to identify them and share with us if you have a relationship with them. We still have 3 vacancies in the House. This election took a really long time to get up and running. You look at Cedric Richmond from Louisiana. He went over to be in the Biden administration, so that created a vacancy there. Luke Letlow was the congressman-elect from a district in Louisiana, never was actually sat as a member of Congress before he passed away. And then Ron Bright recently died of COVID as well. So that created 3 vacancies. So we'll have elections to fill those vacancies as well. We also had, riots at the Capitol. We had other issues that came about. We had the impeachment that just ended. So really getting to legislation has taken a while in Congress. Meanwhile, the states, and some of them vary. Some of them are actually able to meet in person or are holding virtual events. Some are pure virtual. And NAIFA, those relationships that we have, the grassroots advocacy there is really important because we need to be able to be nimble, as Kevin said, and we have been. We've testified in person with masks. We've had people testify in other states virtually on a call just like this. So we've made sure that we're continuing our advocacy dominance, if you will, and are going to continue to do that. But we want you to be a part of it. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So in Congress, next up is going to be, you've probably heard a little bit about the budget reconciliation. And, the simplest way to look at it is that it eliminates the 60 threshold in the Senate in order to pass legislation, and it only requires a simple majority. So it gets it down to 51. As you know, the elections resulted in an evenly split Senate, but with the administration, the vice president then becomes the tiebreaker. And so they could pass legislation along party lines if they use budget reconciliation. And that's what we're seeing happening. The first out of the box, if you will, is a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. And there's some concerns over the cost of that. And so we'll see how that develops. There isn't anything directly related to our industry at this point. It has to meet certain requirements in the Senate to maintain that simple majority vote. One of the things that's called into question, though, and I'll just kind of flag for you, is that phased in a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour. And that's something that the parliamentarian in the Senate would rule on as to whether it was relevant or not, and whether it could be included in budget reconciliation. But if you remember, I said there was that impeachment trial, and that kind of kept the Senate parliamentarian a little bit busy. So she should be able to weigh in on that provision soon. They're looking to have that to the president's desk by mid-March is the goal. And that's basically when the unemployment benefits run out. And so you want to make sure that there isn't that gap. And that's why the time frame is there. But as soon as that budget reconciliation bill is done, we're going to see more activity in other issues. And we believe, because it can be tied to a budget process, that this Congress will have another, if not a third, opportunity to use that budget reconciliation process. And that's where I think you're going to see some of the NAIFA member issues really come to fruition. Why we need to gear up now, why we need to know where we have relationships, why you need to tune in. Let's take a look at the next slide. So a piece of legislation that I'd like to call your attention to, and this kind of goes back to the diagram of sort of the lifestyle of the legislator, typically going through local politics, then state, and then up to Congress, but that our issues also flow through that. And typically what we've seen is that the states will sort of mirror legislative initiatives that were taken on the federal level. But the PRO Act is actually the opposite. This was something that was enacted in California, and was something that our NAIFA California chapter worked on very diligently to make sure. And basically, this is a piece of legislation, or actually law now in California, that redefines what an independent contractor is and how you meet that relationship. And what NAIFA California did is went in and explained the nature of the relationship of our members and how they work with carriers, and that independent contractor model as defined really would push them out of that space, and that wasn't the intent, and they needed to have a deeper understanding of how we work with our carriers. They were able to do that, and in California, before passing the legislation, they amended it and had an exemption for basically the financial advisors and agents. And what we want to see happen is in Congress to see a similar carve-out within the PRO Act. So we have a lot of education to do there. And this is one of those examples where I said that we beefed up some of our capabilities, is that we went back and said, you know what, NAIFA California, you've been through this, you've done this. Let's take that model and replicate it on the national level, since we're facing similar challenges there. And that works across all the states. We're seeing different legislation introduced in one state, and we want to be able to take advantage and leverage the expertise of another state that may have already been through it. Same thing on the federal level, so that we really are getting that lift and that synergy from working together. So that's just one example. You can expect more on the PRO Act, because I think this is something that's really a high priority for the unions to address the independent contractor status. We're going to have to do a lot of storytelling, explaining the relationships that you have with your carriers, so that you're not adversely impacted by this legislation, or should it become law, that you're not negatively impacted by the law. With that, I am going to before I turn things over, I'm going to remind you of some dates. The congressional conference will be a virtual meeting this year. So we're basically going to bring Congress to you, but there's going to be an interactive component to it. So you definitely want to watch for those dates. Go ahead and mark your calendar now, plan to participate. The 25th will basically be a presentation. The 26th will be our action day. So you'll meet with legislators and participate in other activities. And then at the end of the year, December 6th through 8th, we're hoping that we can be in person, and that'll be our National Leadership Conference with a day on the Hill. So this is sort of an expansion of what was typically our national advocacy meeting, and it's going to include all leadership. So mark your calendars for that as well. I will now turn things back over to one of our biggest believers and greatest advocates, Tom Michael. Tom, back to you.
Okay, a couple technical issues there, but I'm back. Thank you, Diane. And I ask all of you to please really take into consideration what Diane has said. The time is now, and I want to reiterate what we've talked about for years, that many of the federal and national levels start at the state and the grassroots level, And none a better example than what she just talked about with the PRO Act and HR 842. I know California really worked diligently to get that done, and it leads a roadmap for where we're going. The time is now, and speaking of time, I just want to tell you, I've been a member of this great association for 35 years. And for over 20 years, I've been involved at affiliate, state, and national levels. I can honestly say I have never been more enthused about where NAIFA is, but more importantly, where NAIFA is going. Our brightest days is not a cliche. Our brightest days really are ahead of us. If we were together, I'm pretty confident I could look you right in the eye from the stage or in person, and you would feel my passion and my confidence in this organization. Right now, we have this forum, so I hope you can sense my spirit for what we're doing and where we're going. I want to reiterate again, your NAIFA staff and your board of trustees cannot do this alone. What we and you put into this is what we are going to get out of it. And as Diane said, our voice is needed at every level now more than ever. As we grow forward, please remember, this is not my association. It's not the Board of Trustees Association. It's not the NAIFA Staffs Association. This is your association. We are all in this together. In my first six weeks as your president, I've heard from many of you, and I want to thank you for reaching out. But if you are struggling with anything you think we're doing, please know our executive committee and board of trustees has a very open door policy. If my enthusiasm and our words today don't go any further than this webinar, and the word is not spread to your colleagues, then frankly, I think we failed. We need you to get on the bus and spread the word about this new NAIFA, that the plan is working. And we need you to ask your colleagues to become part of something special. Allow us to make presentations to your agencies or affiliated groups in your area. When advisors and company leaders see the story, they see the results, it generally is a quote unquote, well, of course I'll be a member. So please let us know how we can help in your area. There's an old saying that says to carry a positive action, you must have a positive vision. I hope we have illustrated the positive vision to you today so that positive actions continue. As we look ahead, please remember, as leaders, it's leaders who empower others. In closing, thank you. The difference often between mediocrity and exceptionalism is our enthusiasm. So join with me and enthusiastically continue to build a better NAIFA. I know we can do this. You know why I know this? Because together we can do anything. Thank you again for your time. Stay safe, stay warm, and we hope to see you all very, very soon. Good afternoon.